It is episode number 4 of the Gashouse Gang. Welcome in, everybody, along with the big dog, Bernie Miklasz. My name's Matt Pauley. Great to have you with us as we are here on the video stream. Maybe you're watching on YouTube. Maybe you're watching on Twitter, wherever it might be, Facebook, or listening via podcast later. We're glad that we're able to talk sports with you on an each and everyday basis here during the 12 o'clock hour or whenever you happen to be tuned in. As mentioned, Bernie Miklasz is here. Bernie, it's great to see you as always. How are you?
Doing well today. Looking forward to another outstanding weekend of college football and NFL football and some other goodies. So hope you're doing good.
Yeah, doing great. And Bernie, you were on Sports Open Line yesterday, and we kind of started this conversation. I'm sure we'll repeat some of what was said yesterday for folks who did not hear it. But we got some news yesterday out of the general manager meetings, which are going on down in San Antonio. Sometimes those serve almost as the preamble to the winter meetings, which are in a few weeks. Those will be in Dallas this year. So baseball executives spending a lot of time in Texas over this month or so. But John Mozeliak basically told us that, A, Willson Contreras is going to be sticking around. He doesn't want to be traded. And B, he's not going to be catching anymore. He's going to move over to first base. So he becomes the Cardinals replacement for Paul Goldschmidt. Seems like most of the reception to this has been positive. I know I like the move. We talked yesterday. It seems like you like the move as well.
Absolutely. First of all, I really appreciate the fact that Willson Contreras wants to be a Cardinal and wants to stick it out, ride it out with a team that's going through a transition. Whatever title you want to put on it, go ahead. Everybody can call it what they want. Rebuild, reset, renovation, whatever. But their chances of competing for a championship the next 2 seasons, to say the least, are pretty slim, and that's being polite. However, he doesn't want to run. He doesn't want to, send me to someone, where I have a chance to win a World Series. It's none of that. I think he likes it here. And I think knowing Willson Contreras the way he is, I think he's wired in a way that he wants to prove, he wants to reaffirm the fact that the Cardinals did a smart thing when they signed him to that 5-year, $87.5 million deal. So I like it on a lot of levels. Just it starts with someone who I think can be a team leader, and they're going to need a new team leader and leaders with Goldschmidt gone and possibly Arenado later, and I know we'll talk about that. But Matt, as we were talking last night, and but I think it's worth repeating, the Cardinals need offense, and Willson Contreras was their best hitter last season. In fact, he's been one of the best right-handed hitters in the major leagues over the last 2-3 seasons. And his offense, as you pointed out, and Kevin Wheeler has pointed out, his offense at first base, and I crunched the numbers this morning, and I won't go through all of them, but based on the whole major league wide average for offensive numbers from the first base position, Willson Contreras is way, way, way above average in terms of offense at the first base position. But the other bonus to this, unless the Cardinals screw it up, is that last year their 2 best hitters, minimum 250 plate appearances, their 2 best hitters were Willson Contreras and Ivan Herrera. So by moving Contreras to first base, you also open up the catcher position for a lot of at-bats, many, many more at-bats for a guy who was your second best hitter last year. So your lineup has improved because of this move, the way I look at it. And we'll talk about it because I'm giving a long answer, and I apologize. I know some people are wondering, and well, what about you platoon Baker and you platoon Burleson? I'll be happy to talk about that, but would you rather have Contreras at first base and Herrera behind the plate, and Burleson can DH and Contreras can DH? Burleson can play a lot of first base and Contreras can DH. But offensively, why would anyone prefer a Burleson Baker platoon with also Contreras behind the dish? Like, how are you better with that when you can put 2 outstanding bats in your lineup to play a lot at catcher and first base?
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of tentacles that go along with this decision. Let's start with just the fact that this allows Willson Contreras to be in the lineup. What we're hearing is that the medical folks, the team trainers, indications have been given Contreras just wasn't going to physically stay healthy if he was trying to catch as much as he's been trying to catch. And we saw a little bit of that this past year. With all due respect to Contreras as a defensive catcher, and give him all the credit in the world for making himself a better defensive catcher since becoming a Cardinal, he was signed for his bat. And the last thing this organization needs is him going out and missing 50, 60, 70, 80 games a year because he can't stay on the field.
Yeah, that's the point. Exactly. That's why they have to maximize his offense. I mean, they have to really, really maximize the value. And the only way that happens is that he plays a lot more than he did last season and even in 2023. And also, with Herrera, if he fulfills his potential, which I think he will. I mean, there's nothing in his history that suggests that he will not be a really good hitter in the major leagues. His value will go up if the Cardinals are smart enough to play him a lot. I'm already a little nervous about, they're going to split time in Herrera and Paje. No. Herrera would be one of the best young catchers offensively in Major League Baseball, and his potential to be an outstanding hitter for a long time is there. You need to get this show on the road. You don't have him splitting time with basically a defensive catcher, and Pajes will catch a lot anyway because of the grinding nature of the job. But no, I think it's a really good thing. And there's some pearl clutching over Contreras' defense. You just mentioned it. Last offseason, Contreras knew he had to improve in a lot of ways behind the plate. He was 100% committed to it, and he did make himself better. He is going to take that attitude into this new challenge of playing first base. And hopefully the Cardinals will, give him some coaching and give him support to help speed that transition to first base along.
We talked about this yesterday. I saw this team fall in love with Pedro Pajes, and pitchers really enjoy throwing to Pedro Pajes. And when they had a decision to make when Herrera got healthy this past year, and the decision was either send Pajes back to AAA and let Herrera come up, or get her or stick with Pajes, they stuck with Pajes. And I'll be very curious, because this year was all about winning. This year was they were trying to get into the playoffs. They had this veteran pitching staff. We don't know how many of those veteran type guys are going to be around. I think one of the key storylines going into spring training is what that's going to look like. What percentage of the games behind the plate will go to Herrera, and what percent will go to Pajes?
Well, I'm taking my stand on this one months before spring training opens, because to me it's absurd. Any thought that Herrera won't get the bulk of the time at catcher with his immense offensive potential. Oh, and by the way, I invite everyone to go to StatCast and look up his defensive metrics. They are not nearly as negative as what people assume. Now, does Pajes call a better game as a catcher? Yeah, he's also got more experience. He's a few years older. Herrera doesn't have the overall catching experience that Pajes does, including the minor leagues. So in that regard, Herrera is still a work in progress. I would concede that. However, if you look at last year, and this can be a little bit of a flimsy stat, but if you look at the catcher ERAs, there wasn't all that much separation between Pajes and Herrera. There's a gap, and again, I'm acknowledging that Pajes is a better receiver in terms of working with the pitchers, but it's not that simple. If this franchise is selling the fan base and the media on the notion that 2025 is a transition year, this is the season we want to find out. We want to give our young players, more opportunity than they've ever had, so we can find out what they do. And this is a time where they can play a lot and work on their problems and get better. And then we can have a better outlook for 2026. This is all about the young players. Hold on now. How in the world when you're billboarding that as your season and you're advertising that as, hey, this will be the year of the young players, full opportunities for the young players, come see us and all that stuff. Young and hungry team, come see us. In what equation does that lead to Ivan Herrera sitting on the bench a lot because you want to play Pedro Pajes, who does not have anything close to the offensive potential of Ivan Herrera? So are they really committed to this, or are they just trying to spin it in a way that will let people, kind of embrace this idea. Well, young hitters. Oh, I want to see these young players. Well, you ain't gonna. Part of that's going to be really kind of bogus if Ivan Herrera's parked in the dugout a lot, because he's got more potential than just about any one of those young hitters that they have. And again, I remind people, he's their second best hitter last season, and good. He was about 27% above the league average offensively. Contreras was 40% above the league average offensively. So I've got concerns here. I understand that defense is important, but another area where I have this concern is, why is it that then John Mozeliak made a quote to this effect? Why is it that it's almost conceded, where it's almost like set in stone that Ciani's going to be the center fielder?
Yeah,
it's like, well, we want to see what Victor Scott can do. Who the heck has more upside? Is it Victor Scott? Is it Michael Ciani?
Scott.
So what exactly? What are the goals? I mean, I'm going to put them on the spot, because talk is one thing. Who you actually decide to play will determine whether they are truly committed to giving younger players a full opportunity.
One of the things that frustrates the living you-know-what out of me is, I love good defensive baseball teams. It is fun to see teams flash leather. But let's talk about the center field spot from this past year, specifically with Michael Ciani. And his offense got better as the year went along, but there was a point where the team was really struggling offensively. They would not put Nootbaar there. And when you really break it down, Michael Ciani was going to make maybe a play that Lars Nootbaar wouldn't make once every 4-5 games. That's the impact of Michael Ciani. And you were taking 3 to 4 at bats away from an individual to get one play made or 2 plays a week made. I've never understood that. It's great to have great defense, but sometimes we get a little kooky in prioritizing defense too much.
Well, I totally agree with that. And I'm a Ciani fan, and I thought he did a wonderful job for them. But he's got very limited potential offensively, and I don't think that's going to change much. And you have a Victor Scott who's a younger guy than Ciani. He's faster than Ciani. He's going to have more power in the big leagues than Ciani. And the only problem that Victor Scott has is a lack of experience hitting big league pitching. Although late in the season, and I know it's a small sample, but late in the season, he looked awfully good with the bat. He really did, because he got some advice from Ryan Ludwig that he applied, and he became a much better hitter. Now, his defense, what he needs defensively is he needs to track the ball better, and he needs to have a better first step. And this is why, if there's anyone out there, and I don't think there's anyone out there still wonders why, what is all this, why all this stuff about the player development system? They have good players in the minors. I don't understand what this is all about. I don't get it. Why are you going to put a lot of money into that? Well, Victor Scott never had any kind of outfield instruction whatsoever in the minor leagues. The Cardinals don't have, until this year they will. They haven't had a full-time or roving specifically outfield instructor. So he came to the major leagues not nearly as good as he could have been defensively in center field. So my question is, are they going to get him the coaching in spring training, in the offseason? Are they going to send someone to work with him on this? Or they're just going to let him sort of be the same defensively? Because if a Victor Scott plays for you, he has something that no one has on this team, and that includes Ciani, and it also includes Mason Wynn. This guy is a natural-born base stealer. He not only steals a lot of bags, he has an excellent percentage of being successful on his attempts. He brings a whole new element to that lineup if he plays a lot. So, again, I'm just putting it on the line. You got to show me that you're going to do the right thing when you talk about giving opportunities to full opportunities to young players. That should apply, in my opinion, to your best young players, or those who have the most upside. And if you're not going to do that, then what in the heck is the point here? I really, as you can tell, I strongly believe that.
And I promise I'll get this conversation back to Willson Contreras in a second. But to your point, and I think this is something that's important for Cardinals fans to hear, Victor Scott was a minor league Gold Glove Award winner. He was one of the, if not the best defensive outfitter. And then we see him get to the big leagues, and his routes weren't very good. He's not making all the plays. That
Right.
shows the difference between Major League Baseball and minor league baseball. There was nobody better defensively in minor league baseball than Victor Scott, and he gets to the big leagues and he looks exposed.
Right. And that's why guys like him at the major league level, you know what the most important thing they need? Yeah, they need coaching. They need an instructor. They need people to try to make them better. They need reps. They need lots and lots and lots and lots of reps. And if you don't give it to someone with the potential of a Victor Scott or of Ivan Herrera, I repeat, and I'm sorry to be redundant, I repeat, then what the heck is the point of all of this in 2025? This is a year set aside for exactly that. The guys that have the young players with the most talent and most upside, highest ceiling, they need to get most of the reps at their position, period.
Bernie, sometimes I see things and I go try to find numbers to back up what I'm seeing.
Good. I like that.
It didn't work out for me in one area this year because I watched Paul Goldschmidt and I thought offensively he was okay from like June on. So I went and ran some numbers, and I forget exactly. He either had the second or third worst OPS among qualifying first basemen across all of Major League Baseball. So even with like 65% of the season, I thought being respectable, the overall first baseman numbers were just not good enough, way off what we expect from Paul Goldschmidt. We aren't talking a lot about how much better this next year's Cardinals team could be because it's this reboot, reset, revamp year, but the team just got a whole lot better offensively at first base.
I think so. And I know Goldie, had a good second half. The last couple months roughly were pretty good. And his StatCast stuff is impressive still, hard hit rate, things like that. But the point is, if you were taking a break to prioritize development, not only the minor league level, but also developing players that are part of your future at the major league player by giving them a full run of playing time. There's no room in that mix. If that's what your goal is, there's no room in that mix for Paul Goldschmidt. There just isn't. You don't. He's 30. He's 37 to be 38 late next season. That's not a guy that you continue to invest money in, and it's no disrespect to him. But yeah, Contreras will give them more offense at first base than Goldschmidt did last season. And Contreras is a lot younger, and all of his vital signs are very, very good. He's just a really good hitter. So I think they will. To your point, relative to what the major league standards offensively are for first baseman over the last 3 years, Contreras is well above that. And so they can't help but be better offensively at first base this year, especially compared to Goldie's 2023 or 2024, I should say.
John Mozeliak specifically mentioned the fact that Sonny Gray is another guy who's kind of all in on this. That's good news for starting pitching, and he'll be able to lead the rotation. No real word was given on Nolan Arenado's reaction to what's going on. You've talked about it a lot. I'm not trying to just repeat what we talk about every day on this show, but it feels like to me the news of yesterday between Contreras going to first and Gray committing to the team, that leads me to believe that the percentage has even gone higher that Nolan Arenado gets moved.
And we're sort of playing a game of like, well, who is he talking about? The only other Cardinal, if Sonny Gray is committed to staying, let's just say that that's truly the case, or he won't change his mind, is a better way to put it. The only two guys with no trade clause in their contracts right now are Miles Michaelis and Nolan Arenado. And listen, who profiles as a guy that might want to look around to have a better opportunity to win right now? I'm not saying Miles Michaelis doesn't want to win, but I know Miles Michaelis is perfectly content pitching for the Cardinals for one more year. And I can't believe that, he would be the guy rather than Arenado being the guy who would say to the Cardinals, if you look around and you got my permission to look around and, we'll see where it leads, but go ahead and look around. That's Arenado. That can't be Michaelis if we're forced to make a choice there. And I think it's in everybody's best interest to make a deal. It's easy to say make a deal because there are complications. First of all, he'll be 34 next season. By the end of his contract in 2027, he'll be 36, which means a year after that to the 2028 season, he'll be 37. We saw what he looked like at age 33. If you look in the crystal ball, it's not a handsome sight what he might look like 2 years from now. So I don't know that the trade interest will be. I don't know how to measure the trade interest, but it certainly wouldn't be it wouldn't be nearly as high anywhere in the same hemisphere as it would have been, say, after the 2022 season, to state the obvious. So I think some front offices are smarter now, and I think some teams will be wary of him because of the decline factor. And then there's also the contract, and how much would the Cardinals have to eat of the money owed to him? It's basically, if you factor in what the Rockies owe still, there's $5 million over the next $10 million total over the next 2 years. So that contract goes from $74 million to $64 million. But there's also deferments that make it deferred money that makes it a little complicated. But that stuff has also been put in escrow. So I don't know that it's quite as big as a deal as I first thought it was. But don't you think, given the fact that Arenado has gone through a lot of losing, and the whole Colorado experience with him was just disappointing, and it was really tough for him to deal with. And that's why he wanted to come to St. Louis, for a chance to win, chance to contend. That's not working out the way that he expected. So why would he want to sort of repeat a Colorado cycle all over again for their next 3 years, except it's in St. Louis? That's just not a good mix. That Arenado being on a losing team or an unsuccessful team, it's not a good mix in terms of his personality for where the Cardinals are as a team going forward.
I do think Arenado deserves some credit in one area, because this past year he realized offensively he wasn't the guy that he'd been before. He was not impacting the game by driving the ball as much. I remember you had a lot about what percentage of his base hits were singles as opposed to doubles and home runs. A year ago, we were talking about a void of leadership in the Cardinals clubhouse, and that led to Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn and Matt Carpenter and all those guys. I saw a guy in Arenado who said to himself, I'm not driving the ball. I got to impact this team positively in other ways. And I felt he really started to invest in some of the young players. There was stuff on social media of him being in the cafeteria until 1 o'clock in the morning with Pedro Paez and Mason Wynn. When the hotel flooded, a bunch of young guys ended up in his suite, sleeping on his bed. I'm not saying that's him saying that he wants to stick around and go through this, but I do think there is some credit that goes to Arenado, because I thought there was a very intentionality of him trying to be a better leader of young players this past season.
Well, that's nice and all. It is, and tip of the cap. But I also have to say, though, this was his 4th season. So let's just say it took him 3.5 years out of 4 years to decide to step up as a leader. I'm not all that impressed by that. And I just wonder if the situation will be, and that was also before he knew what direction the Cardinals are going in. And so I wonder if he would be Mr. Positive, Mr. Sunshine over the next 2 years. I think it's a legitimate question. I do give him credit for trying. I just wish he would have tried sooner. And that's been part of the enigma of a Nolan Arenado, and a really, really great player. And I think he's a Hall of Famer for sure. But I think it's a guy that's just been really, really worn down by losing. And I don't think his personality fits where the Cardinals are going to be over the next couple of years. But better late than never, I guess. So I just, I don't know. They need new leadership to emerge. To me, that's a big thing. Brendan Donovan can do that. Contreras can do that. There are some others with the potential. If you don't have Goldie, which they won't, and you don't have Arenado, I think some of their younger guys have kind of been tiptoeing around that. Well, these are the elder statesmen. I can't act like I'm the team leader. I think if both of those guys are gone, I think a new generation can take over leadership in that clubhouse, and I think that that's a very welcome thing, because it needs to happen.
And much more important than a guy sitting and having a drink at 1 o'clock in the morning with his teammates is when you think about the roster. And John Mozeliak at the press conference, in-person press conference a month and a half ago, and in the video press conference 3 weeks ago, however long it was, he has mentioned over and over and over about young players getting more opportunities. With Contreras going to first, there's more opportunity for young players behind the plate. But you look at these spots that are not totally accounted for, whether it's second base, whether it's DH, whether it was first base before this move. And let's just take Nolan Arenado out of the conversation at third base as well. It feels like, Bernie, for there to really be the opportunities for these younger players to have an opportunity to be everyday type players, you almost have to have third base open. That way you can use that as one of those spots, whether it's, between second, DH, third base. It's going to be Burleson. It's going to be Baker. It's going to be Sajaci. It's going to be Donovan. It's going to be Gorman. Like, those guys need at bats, and it gets really tough to find them if Nolan Arenado's at third.
Right. And they have a lot. If Arenado's not here, they have a lot of ways they can go, and they can also divide the job a little bit. Donovan can move in at third if they want that. I think he's more valuable as a super utility guy that you move around, because he can play defense pretty well at all areas, and it gives you a lot of lineup flexibility. Gorman's a natural third baseman, and I know the Cardinals really liked him as a third baseman in the minors before they moved him to second, which for understandable reason when they got Arenado. Sajaci factors into third base because he can play all positions, but I don't think they would want him as much at shortstop, although he can handle it. But third base could be a spot for him. They could have two utility guys moving around in that context. I know Jordan Walker was a third baseman coming up, and before they moved him to right field, and I know that some fans are clamoring for him to play third base. I don't say that the fans are wrong with that. I don't, but it's just an interesting situation because, again, this gets back to how the Cardinals have failed Jordan Walker. Jordan Walker was brutal in right field as a rookie, but instead of just writing him off and saying, well, he's brutal, he'll never be able to play the position, I was frankly proud of the fact that even before he got to the major leagues, I was calling them out from the summer before in the minors because I kept waiting and waiting and waiting for them to move him from third base to right field. And they did it with about a little bit more than a month left in the season. Now, what is the thinking there? You don't give the kid a chance to learn how to play right field, and you don't have an outfield instructor to work with him there, and then you decide, genius, well, we're just going to throw him out there to make his major league debut. He's nowhere near ready to play right field in the major leagues. When Willie McGee worked with him intensely, a little while into his rookie season, we saw Jordan Walker get better. Was he Roberto Clemente? No. Did he get better? Yes. But what happened? Because of hitting, they send him back down again. And he's another guy, like when he's bad defensively or he's bad offensively, those two things work against each other. It affects his overall play. He had his best offensive numbers as a rookie when he had started to play a respectable right field. He felt good about his all-around game instead of worrying about everything. So they send him down last year, and what happens? All the progress he made, because he was in Memphis for a long time, all the progress he had made the summer before, gone, lost, because there's no teachers down there. There were no outfield instructors. And when he got back up here, he was bad, early last season, but when he got back up here, it was even worse. So I'm not writing him off in right field. I'm saying the Cardinals have a responsibility to make it a priority to make him better defensively, because they have, no pun intended, they have absolutely dropped the ball on that, and it's inexcusable.
Yeah, we've talked about it. It's incredible how different he looked defensively in a negative way when he got back. And again, that goes back to, that's why this stuff is important, because people right. like to dismiss the idea that hiring some outfield roving guy is going to make a difference at the big league level. It absolutely is, because when you got Jordan Walker going back to AAA, and he's got to get instruction, and it just didn't seem like it was there.
Right. And Victor Scott didn't get it. Ivan Herrera didn't get it. They don't have a full-time catching instructor in the minor leagues. Up until now, I'm sure that'll be taken care of. Think about how much more advanced maybe some of these younger guys would have been had they had the benefit of what just about every team in the majors provides to their prospects, which is hands-on instruction full-time.
So with at 100%. With Contreras being what we would assume to be just about the everyday first baseman, he'll DH there a little bit as well. That does, you referenced it earlier, Baker and Burleson. You thought that maybe there's a chance that they would be platoon partners over at first base. It kind of pushes them more to the DH role. I really like Alec Burleson, but his splits weren't fantastic this past year. We know about Baker's splits. It feels, even if they're not playing every single day, it feels like using those guys in more of a platoon role, even at the DH spot, makes the team better.
Yeah, it all depends. Like I'm gonna go by what Mozeliak said yesterday to the reporters covering the winter or the GM meetings, and I'm not saying that Mozeliak won't change his mind. I'm just saying I'm going to go by what he has said about this so far, because he was asked about Burleson. He had projected it maybe being a big part of a first base platoon going forward. And basically Mo said that, listen, we have Contreras at first base. Burleson will play some at first base. He didn't say how much. And he said, and we see a situation where whoever's not playing first base most of the time will become the DH. And that makes sense in a lot of ways. Listen, I've been put in the position where I have to sort of be a grouch about Luken Baker, and I really don't want to be, because I've thought he deserved a full opportunity. But I think if there is who were the quote winners and losers of this Contreras to first base decision? I don't think this benefits Baker at all, because it seals off one more opportunity for playing time and at bats. And the thing of it is, well, Contreras hasn't played first base. Again, no disrespect, Luken Baker's not a good first baseman. So I'm not sure if someone out there is arguing, well, Contreras is a catcher, he's going to try to play first base. I'd rather have Baker there. So you would rather pass on a wonderful opportunity to hugely upgrade your offense at first base because of Luken Baker, because you would rather have Willson Contreras stay behind the plate. What has Luken Baker done that gives people all this faith that he's going to be some big, huge star? Maybe he will be, but this idea that somehow, oh no, they got to get Baker in there a lot. I don't know how they do it, given the new configuration of giving the young Herrera a lot of time behind the plate, Contreras at first base. And then if going back to what I said, what Mo said, he sees a situation where Burleson and Contreras in effect share two positions, first base and DH. Okay, how does Luken Baker fit into that? I'm just being honest and realistic.
Well, probably depends on if Burleson can hit lefties. If Burleson struggles against lefties, then Baker is your versus lefty DH and versus lefty guy off the bench. And Burleson got better, and it was when you looked at his numbers down the stretch. I remember I said something on my postgame show one day, and then Chris Tino from the Cardinals the next day says, "Hey Matt, you should probably take a look at what Burley's stats are against lefties since a certain time." And the splits got better as the year went along, but the overall numbers went down as the year went along. It felt like Burleson lost some gas there at the end of the season. So to me, it has everything to do with Burleson. If he can hit lefties, then he's your DH. If he can't, you got a guy in Luken Baker who's ready to step into that role.
You could, but I don't disagree with you, but I also know there's going to be a kind of a puzzle here, because there's going to be some other guys that might figure into it too. So what would the distribution of at bats look like? And I guess Baker would be a good guy to have on the bench, and he did well in that role last year. But in 2 years in big leagues, and granted, we're talking about 150 plate appearances. He's hitting 198, slugging 341. Again, I know I'm sounding all salty for no reason, but that doesn't make him Mark McGwire, okay? I mean, I think he's been overhyped because we can see the massive power. And it's unfair to base it on the small sample. But the thing is, I mean, he still has a lot to prove. Maybe there's a way to get him enough bats. I'm just a little skeptical of that if they're going to go with the plan that they pretty much announced yesterday.
I do want the Cardinals to be smarter in how they platoon guys. Like this is not a team that has done an especially good job of taking advantage of lefty-righty splits over the last couple of years. And again, I think that's where Baker can come into this. They've got to, you want to put together a lineup on an everyday basis that allows you to score the most runs. And I think at times this team gets stuck in just putting the same guys out there as opposed to really looking at the numbers and figuring out which group is going to give you the best chance to win.
No, you're right. And one of the interesting things about that is that in 2022, his first season as a Cardinals manager, the Cardinals had a platoon split advantage and a pretty high percentage of their plate appearances. In 2023, and the offense was pretty good in 2023. It wasn't world beater, but it's pretty good. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but trust me, because you know me, I'm a numbers nerd. I look all this stuff up. Their platoon split advantage was actually a higher percentage again in 2023, and then last year it suddenly dropped. To your point. Now I don't know what it is about there all the time. Like when I'm in my comment section of my YouTube channel, whatever, and I'm responding or just general emails and things that I get. There are people that for some reason break out into a rash over the fact that you're platooning guys, and I'm not sure. I'm at a loss to figure out why that is, because this is nothing new. This is absolutely nothing new. You know who had, and again, I can't drop the number on you, but I looked it up because I was always obsessed with Whitey Herzog and the things the Cardinals, when he was the manager, had, in terms of a platoon split advantage in the number of at-bats during a season. They were in their peak years, in the 80s, they were always like in the top 5 in the major leagues of platooning guys. Well, left-handed bat against this guy, right-handed bat against that lefty. Whitey Herzog did it, and he did it extensively. And I think we all liked the final results there. But yet, when Monreal does it, somehow, as usual, this makes him like a chowderhead or something. This is a big part of baseball. In fact, a manager is negligent. He is foreclosing on his responsibility to the team if he doesn't take advantage of platoon splits. And I don't know why this causes rashes with some people. It makes no sense to me.
It's common sense. Put guys in that score the most runs. Pretty easy.
What do I
know?
People try to, I talk too much about growing up in Baltimore watching Earl Weaver. I mean, Earl Weaver was the platoon split king. He had platoons all over the place. And the Orioles had a mighty offense all the time. And it's just like he would see Gary Renicky and John Lowenstein. Nobody wants to know that, but look him up. And you don't have a full left fielder, but he platooned those guys. And the production they got out of that spot in 1979, where they were a great team, the production was phenomenal. But so why is this such a bad idea to some people that love the Cardinals? I don't get it, man. Yeah. I don't get it at all. It ain't that complicated.
No, it isn't. Last thing for you before we get out of here for the day.
I've gotten my belly aching done for the day. Anyway, go ahead.
I don't think you're going to be overly upset about a TV deal, but we do find out today that the Cardinals are going to remain on what is now FanDuel Sports Network Midwest, previously Bally Sports Midwest, previously Fox Sports Midwest. Bernie, I don't think it's a coincidence that sports gambling just got voted in Missouri, and then this happens. And I understand the business of this. FanDuel doesn't own the network. It's a naming rights agreement, but I have to think that there is something written in there where it is a more valuable property when you are in a state that has legalized sports gambling. So FanDuel Sports Network, I would think, can give a sweeter deal to the Cardinals with sports gambling in the state as opposed to without. I have no inside information on that. I'm just connecting some dots, and I think that has to be part of this.
Well, yeah, you're right. And, FanDuel obviously is very, very aggressive about making partnership deals with major league franchises, all sports. I wish I had that in front of me. I don't. They're all over the place. Mm-hmm. And see, the Cardinals are going to have a sports book on the premises. The Cubs attached their sports book. They bought one, and they literally attached it to Wrigley Field. But they don't run it, okay? In other words, I don't think Bill DeWitt III is going to be running a sports book, right? This is something you lease out, or you have a partnership arrangement, and you hire the people like FanDuel or some teams, DraftKings or BetMGM, because there's all kinds of choices. They're the people that operate the sports book, and they run it, and they know all the standards, and it runs like a smooth machine, and they got everything covered, and it goes really, really well. And what happens from everything I've been reading about this is that the team itself gets a cut of it. Like the Cubs, for example, signed a 10-year deal worth $100 million. I don't remember it was DraftKings or FanDuel. It was one of the two. 10 years, $100 million. So the Cubs get $10 million a year plus a share of food and drink sold inside the sports book. So maybe that's a starting point of like what it could look like early on for the Cardinals if in an arrangement. It's going to be FanDuel because that's their TV partner now too, officially. So this can only help them. What I love about it is the people that have their whatever I'm talking about St. Louisans in this viewing area, whether it's DirecTV or it's obviously cable, or there's Fubo has had a streaming service that offers the Cardinals games. The fans of the Cardinals in this area can still watch Cardinals baseball the way they're used to watching it, right? Nothing's going to change. But for the people that, like I'm a cord cutter, for the people like me who prefer to do like pretty much all streaming, and the people out of state who have been blocked out because of stupid blackout rules and the blackout rules locally, all that's gone now. The Cardinals are going to be able to offer a streaming service with their games, the fan over the FanDuel sports network or whatever you're calling it. They will be offering direct to consumer streaming packages, and that goes to anybody who wants it. It doesn't matter where they live. It doesn't matter if they're cable guys or women, if they're satellite. It doesn't matter. You can go directly to the Cardinals and purchase a streaming package with no restrictions whatsoever, and that's a really great thing for the fans. Are they going to have to pay for it? Well, yeah. Will I pay for it? Bernie the consumer? Well, heck yeah. The first day it becomes available. So I'm not sitting here being a hypocrite because it's not easy to spend money on stuff you haven't spent it on before. But this is a good thing for fans who have been shut out, because if they rely on streaming or they're victims of these stupid blackout rules, all of that now is put away. And all of this now is full go. You don't have to worry about any restrictions.
Not to talk down to people, but just to kind of explain the situation of what's led to this. The Cardinals signed that $1 billion deal with Fox Sports Midwest back in the day. Essentially, that deal has been ripped up. That deal's been ripped up in Bally markets all over baseball. In most markets, they're not staying on what is now FanDuel. They're just doing their own thing. If you go to Milwaukee or Minnesota or Texas, wherever, they're San Diego, Arizona had already done it. They are doing it through the facilities of MLB Network. They're distributing it to cable companies on their own. They're doing the app on their own. The Cardinals are a product that has a lot of value to it. And even though the deal with FanDuel gets ripped up, the Cardinals are still joint partners in it. So they still have some ownership in the network, which is important in all this. And also by allowing the direct-to-consumer option, now the blackout goes away. By allowing the direct-to-consumer option, the Cardinals are able to create a revenue stream off of that. And then they're also probably able to get as much TV money as possible from FanDuel. They're not getting the $1 billion that they signed with years ago, but I would bet they're making more off that TV deal than these other teams that really haven't had the opportunity to stay with Diamond and are just doing it on their own.
Right, and there's also real growth potential because in terms of the direct to consumer, because I think I'm an example of that. Okay, I'm not a 35-year-old guy, a 28-year-old guy. I'm 65, and I know that some of the really wonderful people that are in my generation, are still. Not everybody, but they're still kind of getting their entertainment, their TV, whatever, their sports through traditional means. But there's nothing to be afraid of. I made the choice a couple of years ago. All right, I'm streaming only, and I actually love it. I think it's just the best way to go because you can pick and choose what you want instead of paying for stuff that you don't want. And I think my point being, there may be maybe among older fans, I don't know. There may be some reluctance to take out a streaming package through the Cardinals. Maybe among other things, they don't like the direction of the team or whatever. I get that. But as time goes on and it becomes more and more routine and more normal and kind of more conventional, then more and more people will start to sign up for streaming when they realize, well, this is pretty easy. It's really not a big deal. There's nothing to be afraid of, And I think I think the growth potential for the Cardinals with direct to consumer is really strong, especially if they can get this thing, the team, back on track to where they're contenders every year.
Bernie, you did, I think it was 35, 40 minutes yesterday on your YouTube channel, all on this Willson Contreras thing. People who enjoy these videos are going to really enjoy the Bernie show on YouTube. Tell folks how to get that. You did 2 videos yesterday, 1 or 2 videos every day, going really in depth on a single topic. I learned so much just myself watching those on an everyday basis, and people who are not watching really need to be watching every day.
Just go to youtube.com and then / The Bernie Show, at The Bernie Show. If you just enter a search term on Google, The Bernie Show, you'll find it. It's not hard to find. And I usually go somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes, sometimes longer. I did a blues video yesterday. I went a little shorter than that. I'm debating whether to start to do some really short videos mixed in. So we'll see. This is still a work in progress, but the channel's going really well, and I'm really excited by the response to it. And thank you for giving me a chance to promote it.
That's Bernie Miklasz. I'm Matt Pauley. This has been the Gashouse Gang. Bernie, thanks so much. Have a great rest of your week. We'll talk again here in a few days.
I enjoyed it a lot, Matt. Thank you.